Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial. Go to audibletrial.com/Rushmore. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
Howdy, and welcome to Mount Rushmore, the podcast where we discuss and debate the Mount Rushmores of life. I'm Michael Winfield, and joining me are my good friends Richard.
Hello.
And Jeff.
What's my bitches at?
There you go. I thought you were going to work that in last week, but it never quite got there. If you did join us last week, usually Richard and myself are the ones that are debating any sort of given topic, and Jeff is our judge and host. But we like to kind of, throw the gauntlet at him every, once or twice a year.
Oh, I got that face. You just want to throw gauntlets at.
Yeah, real gauntlet-y type.
Like the
face
video game, we throw a whole arcade game at him.
That's right. Warrior needs food. And every once in a while, we like to get Jeff involved a little bit more, and see what it's like.
Mix it up.
It's
like these nuts that we have that we're eating here. We have a big thing of mixed nuts, except they're all cashews.
Okay, as the judge, I'd like to make a ruling. No nuts, guys. Come on. We're not professionals doing this, not in a spare bedroom. So come on. So anyway, this week our topic is I don't even know what the fucking topic is. 1 second.
Late show additions to
It's got a
sitcoms.
long taco. Hold on.
This will be fun.
This week, our topic is the Mount Rushmore of later in the run character additions to TV sitcoms. This is a mouthful of a choice, and it's Jeff's choice. And Jeff
Has a mouthful of nuts right now.
No, I do not. No, there's the one time I don't.
Jeffrey D. Hopkins.
Yeah.
What's up?
Well, I mean, we can all remember when 60 Minutes added Ed Bradley to try to get those ratings up, right? And you're watching it going, come on.
Yeah, they needed to sex it up.
They need to sex it up with, okay, he's
Bring somebody
hot.
young in.
He's edgy. Adding Ed Bradley to try to get the Nielsen's to respond. Well, I'm a fan of the sitcom format, and we all have these shows that we love passionately, and they're doing great in the ratings. And we all know that things happen in shows, especially success can often spoil a show by elevating the status of its stars or, making it so that they want to try to follow their success and have more sensational plot lines. So I've seen success destroy good shows. And sometimes what they end up doing to try to keep those ratings up is adding a character that just doesn't quite fit. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and that's something I've seen happen a lot and I'm kind of fascinated with.
So you mentioned that they add a character to a successful show. Do any of your choices, before either of you, but spilling means, do either of you have choices where the show is like going off the rails and they're like, we got to save this?
Well, it's not because of the success. I've got an example where the success was driven by the cast, and the cast knows that, and so they hold out for more money, or they decide that they got to go start a feature film career, and so that was one of my choices. So.
Okay, well, this is Jeff's topic, but Richard, you get to go first.
All right. So my first choice is from the TV show Cheers, where I actually had a couple of options I could have gone from on this. But I did
just give us your one option.
No, I'm going to give you all of them, and then just to prove,
make a note that
just to
prove
how good I am. No, I am going with Rebecca Howe, as played by Kirstie Alley.
Rebecca, who, what, when, and where? Believe it.
I believe Michael, you not too long ago kind of rewatched the show or kind of refound the show.
We did,
if I'm not mistaken.
I used to fall asleep watching Cheers growing up, so like I have like certain lines and bits and dialogue, just like it's like that dream thing where it's like I've dreamt of this show for like all of my childhood.
MASH was like that as a kid. I would see it. My parents were watching, and I'd kind of see it in the periphery. So, why'd you pick Rebecca versus the other characters?
Wait.
Hey, it's not your job.
Yeah,
what's going on here?
Oh,
Wait a
sorry,
second.
dude.
Michael, why is my combatant
hold
over
on
here
a sec.
trying
I'm
to
make
guest host?
I'm going to make a note.
Wait.
Jefferson.
You said it's an Etch-a-Sketch. That's not even a laptop.
You got to shake it. You made
Oh,
a
shit.
mistake. You got to start all over.
Richard.
Yes.
Rebecca Howe. Why?
I chose her because it's one of the few instances where there was almost like a straight replacement character where the show actually improved because of it. The other one, obviously, I could have thought of, what I thought of for the show was Woody coming in after Coach, the actor who played him, passed away. And also, a great character, a great addition to the show, but was sort of always a secondary character anyway. They brought Kirstie Alley in as Rebecca Howe to be the replacement for Shelley Long. And for the first however many, 4 or 5 seasons of the show, that was the show, was the Sam and Diane thing.
Yeah.
But then she left to go on to her, as we all know, stellar movie career.
Oh, Night Shift, yeah.
Actually, that was before.
Okay, I'll shut up.
Yeah. Michael, can we mute his so you got the power over this?
Have I been cut from the show?
MUTE?
That's
how you do it, I think.
Can you
do
that
how computers work?
Can you do the M on the Etch-a-Sketch? It's tough to do.
Shake it out again.
Yeah, shake it out again. No, so, yeah, she went on. It's right around, I think she left to go do, Money Pit or possibly Troop Beverly Hills. One of those two. So she decided that she wanted to go have this film career. And I think what they did is they made a really wise choice. Is they brought... They created a character who was not going to be a romantic interest for Sam Malone. They got away from the idea of, well, whoever the female is, if we're bringing in a female character, it has to be somebody who's going to be... We're going to try to recreate that chemistry that they had, and you couldn't do that. So even though Sam especially in the beginning, kind of had this sort of lecherous pawing at her.
Yeah, he pursued her definitely, but she was always in a position of power.
Right. She was always in a position of power, and she was always in a position to just sort of shut it down and say that's not happening. Mm-hmm. And I think after the first season or so, they kind of really de-emphasized that and kind of just made her. She is a single working person, very ambitious and very stressed out and neurotic, and really just made her her own character. And that was always the great thing about Cheers, right? You had these very specific kind of characters, and then you could bring them in and say, how would they fit into this world of this very everybody, where everybody knows your name, that is very comfortable to the people who are already in there. So whether it's
they introduced love interest for her,
right,
kind of pretty consistently. Eventually, the
Tom Berenger at the end.
I was thinking of Robin Colcourt,
right?
English.
Roger Rees.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no, that was I think when they were still trying to pursue is she going to hook up with Sam thing, because he was would get
he'd constantly try to break it. He would always be in the position of, you're making a mistake, and I'm not really a better choice, but there's better choices out there, and then also still try to get with her.
Well, I do remember there's one episode, I think, where after he broke up with her, Robin, she got really drunk, and he went over to check on her, and she threw herself at him, and he was like, no, it's not happening, and put her back to bed. And that was basically the last time they even went down that thread.
No, they tried to have a baby later on.
But that wasn't romantic. That was just wasn't that more like some sort of... Anyway, I think one of the things the show did was, whether it was a completely new character or a character who is going to be on for maybe a recurring character, whether it's Lilith or whatever the hell Woody's girlfriend/wife was, or even these kind of more one-off type of characters. A lot of that comedy came from, what if you bring a new dynamic into the situation? I mean, it is a situation comedy. And so when you bring somebody like a Rebecca Howe type character who is wired differently than the character she's replacing, a lot of times that can totally, fuck up the dynamic of the show. And in this case, it didn't. I think it actually improved the dynamic and got it away from kind of a romantic comedy and allowed more of the... In a way, I think it actually allowed a lot of the other characters to shine a little bit more, because you weren't so tied up in the Sam and Diane crap every episode.
Good pick.
Yeah, I like it. I grew up with this show, but it didn't really stick in my cultural craw. I don't know why.
I remember the last episode when the cast got incredibly stupid drunk on the Tonight Show, and they basically had to cut them off.
Yeah,
That's fun. And it's one of the by the way, one of the better series finales.
Yeah,
I think.
it's hard to end anything, and
Sure.
a series finale.
Ironic that they brought back Diane for the last couple episodes for the series finale.
Right. And then they would kind of have characters show up on Frasier occasionally.
Yeah. Jeff,
I got nothing. I think
first
that's the
pick?
show.
Done and
I feel like that's
done.
the show.
All right, you can wipe your shake your Etch-a-Sketch, Michael.
There's a dude named Jack Burns who figures somewhat in comedy history in a kind of high area because he ended up he was on the show Fridays. Do you remember the show Fridays? That wasn't Saturday Night
Yes.
Live.
Yes.
He was in a comedy duo with a guy whose last name was Carlin. There was a comedy duo called Burns and Carlin, and his comedy partner George Carlin went off to be huge.
Never heard of him.
Look him up. There's a guy he followed on a sitcom called The Andy Griffith Show named Don Knotts, and he basically played the same character, this kind of high-strung, officious sheriff wannabe named Warren Ferguson. And he kind of occupied the space that Don Knotts did, and I think it was this example of the feeling that people have when their dog dies and they get a new dog. They think, you know what, this dog is great, but it's not Sparky. Jack Burns was hilarious, and he did a lot of great work throughout his entire career. One of the things he did was co-write the Muppet movie.
Right.
But he got canceled on the show. I think how many episodes? It's like 11 episodes in, and it was just not a good thing. So I always think of that character and think how hard it is to kind of fill the shoes of just a lead character, and think no matter how good you are in life, you might not succeed because the audience wants the old thing so severely. They didn't explain why his character disappeared, and he was just never mentioned again.
He got in a car accident with Otis the drunk.
Yeah, it could have been
He was
that.
killed.
I don't remember. I
Literally don't remember this character. Although I know who Jack Burns is, I don't remember. I remember Gomer being sort of like pushed. But after Don Knotts left, I felt like they were like leaning on Gomer for a while. Then he left for Gomer Pyle. So then there's like Goober.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it was like Zeppo.
I have no memory of him. Like
He was in
this was a show that I watched like back to back with I Love Lucy when I was like home from school.
Yeah.
And it was just like it was always on like I'm sure 10 o'clock and 10
He
a.m.
was
or whatever.
Floyd the barber's nephew. Floyd is an interesting character too because
What are you doing?
the actor who played Floyd suffered from a stroke in between one season and the next. So there were scenes in the first one season where Floyd, as played by Howard McNear, is up and running around. And in the next season, he's always seen seated in his barber chair because he can't walk anymore. So.
I had to look up Warren Ferguson to see it to find a picture of him. Still, no memory jog. But the picture's in color. Was that also when they switched to color?
Yeah, I think after...
So did like they add color to the show and then add a new character and people were like, no, you can't do two things.
Yeah, can't change my show up that much. But it does remind me of those things where somebody's replaced, but they'll never live on in the mind of as the original. And also with the Andy Griffith Show, people were kind of surprised after those stars left that the show and the settings were powerful enough that they still got pretty good ratings after the leads started leaving. So yeah, that's my second choice.
Interesting.
That's your first choice.
That's my first
Did we
choice.
miss a choice?
No.
Are we busy shaking our Etch-a-Sketches and eating our nuts and Jeff snuck a pick in?
That's my first choice. And I'll stand by it.
That's your first choice. Jeff, thank you. Richard.
All right, my
Numero
Doso.
Dos.
Look, if you're if the trope is named after the character, you should probably choose the character. So I'm going with Cousin Oliver from the Brady Bunch. That is the actual trope that has now been named as the Cousin Oliver trope, which is when you bring in a new character, very specifically, usually a cute kid.
Precocious.
Precocious is also a very good phrase.
Mm-hmm.
I have a whole laundry. There's a whole laundry list of ones you could choose from here. But generally speaking, this happens a lot when it's a show that's based around kids.
Yeah,
like a family. In the first season, the guy family that's like ages like 12 to 5. by the time you get like 6, 7 seasons in, half the kids are in college, youngest kids in high school now. Suddenly your cuteness factor has like plummeted. So what do? Oh, your cousin's going to come live with us. Or, oh, we're adopting a kid or some bullcrap reason to bring in a precocious, charming little kid.
Bangs are never a good choice on a small child.
No, they aren't.
Especially on him. They look...
The Pete Rose look, you mean? It's not
just
not
awful.
a popular choice.
Did they kill him off?
Well, as much as they killed off the entirety of the Brady Bunch, he was only on, I think, for the last half of the last season.
Okay.
So
he went off with Warren Ferguson somewhere.
Yeah.
Those two guys haven't been seen again.
Yeah, he was played by Cousin Oliver, played by Robbie Rist, which is interesting because he is this.
The Robbie Rist?
Well, if you will wait a goddamn second, Jeff. I was going to say he's for a character that is so universally like loathed, and a character who, like I said, is up there with Fonz jumping the shark in terms of like signifying the downturn of something. Robbie Rist as a person wound up having a pretty good career after that.
Oh,
he's done a lot of voice work. He did he's Michelangelo in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
Oh,
he plays Stuffy in Doc McStuffins.
Really?
The Disney show, yeah. He also did the music for the Sharknado franchise.
holy shit!
So that is a very well-rounded life.
That's a decent life.
Yeah. For someone that was like I said, when you say Cousin Oliver, everyone immediately kind of goes, "Ooh."
Yeah.
Maybe it's because his run on the show was so short. God, try saying that.
Yeah.
5 times fast.
And
that he didn't get like pegged with that sort of like.
Oh, you got pegged, all right.
Hey yo.
You know, like it doesn't stick the way that some things have stuck to other child actors.
Yeah.
Well, he was also, by the way, Cousin Oliver, another show. He played Ted Baxter's son on the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Wow.
For like the last season or season and a half, where they kind of brought him in. They sort of put emphasis on Ted's home life and specifically this kid that they tried to bring in for very specific reasons. I know there's a Simpsons episode where they bring where they have another kid that's there just sort of randomly. That's very much based on the Cousin Oliver syndrome.
Yeah. That's funny.
I just mentioned that because I wanted to mention The Simpsons for Michael. We're back at right there.
Listen, we've been playing this game for 90-something episodes. These things don't work on me.
They don't?
I am stone-faced in the way that I judge. I'm up here with my gavel, and it's just like...
He's up there with his gavel.
It's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Nice try.
Well, speaking of The Simpsons, I feel like
Going to take a point away
the
now.
Poochie factor is
Yeah.
I almost feel like this trope
Strong,
could be called
right.
Poochie because of the acknowledgement or how meta they were talking about.
Yeah, it was the same
that character.
episode with Roy.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
that was the
That was the Roy episode, yeah. So
Jeff,
that's it.
Jeffrey,
Jeffrey. Okay.
number 2.
I'm going to try to cue up something here. It'll start with a sound cue.
Uncle Jesse, you know, after 6 years, I don't think I'm going to recognize my own cousins.
Oh, I think you'll recognize them. Now do you recognize them?
Except it's blue.
Daisy, Uncle Jesse.
Hey, Vance. How are you?
This sure beats any port I ever seen in the Merchant Marine.
Sam, we're beginning to wonder if you'd ever get here.
If I'd have known we was going to get a welcome like this, we would have come back years ago. Ain't that right, Coy? Shoot, we never would have
Cuz
left.
incest.
Yeah.
So Coy and Vance, right?
Coy and Vance Duke, the replacement Dukes, who were given a 10-show contract as stand-ins, but then elevated to the actual cousins of Catherine Bach. And the only reason they're even noticeable in this scene because she's wearing full-length jeans and not her cutoff. So, but that was an auspicious entrance. You couldn't see it, our viewers, but the Oldsmobile Chevrolet, I don't know what the thing is, just shot about 300 feet into the sky, obviously launched by a trebuchet or something.
It's a Charger, I believe.
Charger. But as a kid, I do recall I was a little late to the game with the Dukes, and by the time I fell in love with them and had the Dukes of Hazzard lunchbox, fuck me if Coy and Vance didn't show up on the
Fuck the whole
scene
thing up.
and screw the whole thing up. because Tom Wopat and John Schneider were concerned about their contract dispute and merchandising royalties on things like that very lunchbox that I had were what made them quit the show to renegotiate their contract out of protest. And Catherine Bach was also going to walk out, but she didn't because they said that they told her to stay on the show because it might not even be there anymore. But Byron Cherry played Coy Duke, and Christopher Mayer played Vance Duke. And the reaction that I had to them were what I think is very kind of typical is what people see is they see these characters on TV that they love, and they see the new characters come in as kind of interlopers. And I remember thinking, these people can't sneak into my family, my TV family, these Dukes, just like that. So I remember just being angry at these characters for not being the Dukes of Hazzard. And then reading about it, like we all perceive them to be kind of a carbon copy of Bo and Luke. And it turns out even the scripts that they performed from had the Duke brothers' names, the Bo and Luke, just kind of marked out, or crossed out. So all of a sudden, I feel pretty bad for these Byron Cherry and Christopher Myers, these couple Hollywood aspirants who are stepping into these boots that they can't even fill. But then, of course, ratings suffer, and then they have to go back to the negotiation table with Wopat and Schneider and get them back in. So that was one just because I think it was
that's like the MLB strike or something.
Yeah, basically
they sat out for money. They still tried to play the game, and then they're like, well, you saw what's going to happen. You got these C-listers coming in when you need the professionals.
They were scab Dukes.
Yes.
Is what they were, basically.
Yeah.
And do you remember what...
Scab and Gab
Do you remember how they wrote Bo and Luke off? Jeff, do you remember this? I do remember it. Just wondering if you did.
You tell me.
They went off to go drive NASCAR.
NASCAR, okay, yeah.
Which, what the fuck? The two of them, are they like... I know a little...
That's how NASCAR works. You got two in a car at the
same time.
I
was going to say, I know a little bit about NASCAR. You generally don't have a passenger. Mm-hmm. And generally, they don't have 200-foot jumps at Talladega.
What's so funny, though, is I feel like here's a show that's filled with false Southern archetypes anyhow. Like, everybody knew that this... Even like a cartoon. It's like a cartoon. Everybody knew that all this is fake. Why are you going to protest that your fake characters are replaced by even more fake characters?
Right.
I don't even get that.
The authenticity somehow has been ruined by bringing in Coy and Vance.
Right. And in the 27.5 minutes that this show is on every week, 7 of those minutes, it's a fucking stunt driver in that damn car. It's not them anyway. So.
And another 3 minutes is basically shots of Catherine Bach's ass or tits.
Yeah.
So there's really not that much left. Maybe another minute and a half of a bloodhound.
Yeah.
And maybe
Roscoe Pete Coltrane,
Merle Haggard playing at the Crow's Nest, and we're set.
There we go.
Yeah, we really don't. That's the thing. I think you're right. I mean, the characters on that show didn't mean shit. I mean, there was no difference between Bo and Luke Duke as characters.
Yeah.
They were just there as plot devices to be able to get the cars to jump.
Yeah.
That's all they were.
Right. This was kind of like if Burt Reynolds would have done Hooper, the TV show, or something like that, that we would have rather watched that. But no, we had these guys. So there's my choice.
Okay, well, both of you gentlemen have given 2 choices, so we're now at our halftime. And as we're halfway through, this is the part where we kind of beg you to rate and review our podcast. But first, we'd like to suggest using Audible. Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. Want some more info how to introduce a new character halfway through your show? Try Why Does the Screenwriter Cross the Road? What a hacky title. By Joe Guilford. With 180,000 other titles, Audible has it all. And maybe you can choose a different book than that one, because, man, that is a bad title. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Rushmore. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Rushmore. Head out there today. But first, give us ratings. 5-star ratings. Rate our show. Go to Audible. No.
You said rate our show.
Rate our show.
6 stars if you can.
If 7. You can squeeze a 6 or a 7 star in there on iTunes, it would be great. Just do it. Turn off the podcast and do it right now. It's not going to get any better than this, and I'm struggling. I'm struggling, guys.
Jeff, don't jump in. It's the only way he's going to learn.
You're doing so well, Michael.
Jeff, don't.
Heavy.
Me right now. Rate our show right now. Give
Give
he had a
Star.
stroke.
give
He
rate
had a
stars
stroke.
now.
We have to have him in his chair for the rest of the show.
Yeah.
And we're back.
Wait, he does have it. He is in the chair for the rest of the show. Never mind.
Richard,
Yes.
what's your third choice? my
Oh
friend?
shit! We're doing this thing now. Okay. My third choice is Charles Emerson Winchester from MASH, which I think you mentioned a little bit earlier ago. Another example of bringing in a new character to a show, and I think changing the dynamic in a positive way. He was brought in after Frank Burns was written off the show, and as great as Larry Linville was on the show as Frank, I mean, a classic TV character, that character had gotten really one note by the end. It was like, how many times can you write that Frank is it's just bad at everything? You know, bad surgeon, bad person, bad soldier, bad at life. And there was just no way that show could grow at all if you just kept having, and he just got more and more doofusy sort of like as the series would go on. And so I think when they brought in Winchester as a character, he became not just like kind of a whipping post for Hawkeye and everyone else there. Yeah, he was somebody who I think was an actual foil for Hawkeye. He was somebody who could give as good as he got. He wasn't somebody that was a buffoon. He was someone who was an accomplished surgeon, somebody who intelligence-wise can match up with Hawkeye or BJ or whoever. I guess BJ was on the show at that time. And just brought a new dynamic to it. You didn't get stuck in the same, hey, Frank is doing something, comes in and kind of acts like a clown and then shuffles back out sort of dynamic that you had by the end. And I don't think it's a coincidence that sort of that reshuffling of the cast and bringing Charles in is sort of when the show kind of took the turn from sort of almost more of a broader type of comedy to a lot more kind of refined and a lot more kind of character driven stuff. I think I don't think it's a coincidence, because I think you could do more with that character than just have him come in and have Hawkeye play a prank on him or something like that.
I have such a blind spot for MASH, the TV show.
Really?
Complete and total. Like, you could have named anyone, and I would have been like,
He's not the one who's in a dress. That's Klinger.
We established that
Not the one with the teddy bear. That's Radar.
We established that earlier that I fell asleep watching Cheers. Immediately on after Cheers was MASH, and it was just like it's 11:30 and I'm gone by then.
How did you miss it on reruns though?
No, what do you mean? That was reruns.
Oh, they had it on 11:30 yet down here.
Yeah,
Ugh.
I'd watch the
They
Channel
had it
5.
on like at 6 where I was.
I'd watch the Channel
I guess
5
because we're
news
better
with
than you.
Hal Fishman.
Stan Chambers. Stan Chambers evolved.
And then at 11 o'clock was Cheers, and 11:30 was MASH. Sometimes it was Taxi. And those two shows are just like, I got nothing.
You know, I'm kind of with you. I remember seeing many episodes of it, but I never became analytical about it. I never kind of got enveloped in it. I knew that as a fan of Larry Gelbart and the prolific comedy writing, and I knew MASH was a huge hit, but for some reason the laugh track is what turned me off.
Well, they kind of got away from the laugh track again as season 5 or 6, whatever I think it was that they brought Winchester in as a character. They really de-emphasized the laugh track. Yeah. In fact, I think the only place they never had the laugh track in the actual OR, and they really kind of dialed back on it.
Yeah.
So I think that again, that kind of plays that idea of it was a show that was maturing. You couldn't have this kind of like goofus character that was sort of a call out to the original sort of feel of the show.
Reading about Alan Alda and his desire to actually make a statement with some of the later episodes, it seems like they actually had established themselves in the ratings and become well loved by many, and the characters had been developed so much that they actually kind of got to say something in some of those later episodes.
Right, and you're able to give, because David Ogden Sayers is a very good actor. I think it's a different type of good actor, and they were able to create these plot lines for Winchester that could play on him more being kind of a pompous ass sometimes, and the flaws of the character. He was a flawed character, but you could also give him a plot line. Like I know there was one where there was a soldier who had been a concert pianist, and like one of his hands got injured. He was never going to be able to use that hand again. And Winchester basically is able to get the sheet music from a one-armed composer, and it goes through this whole thing with him kind of teaching him, like, look, I love music. I can never play it. You have that gift. Maybe you'll turn into teaching or composing or something like that. And that was like, you never could have had like Charles or Frank do something like that. So it was able, I think also, much like with Cheers, they were able to, as the show went on, they could de-emphasize sort of the Hawkeye hijinks aspect of it and give a lot of these supporting characters their own episode, or give them, an A plot line instead of being relegated to like B or C territory.
It's like in the 4th season when Hogan's Heroes started to expose the atrocities of the concentration camps.
Yeah, I thought it was when they moved them to Bergen-Belsen. Yeah, I thought that was a bold move on their part.
Jeff,
Sir.
numero 3 for you.
Okay. Richard, your example is something where the character added. The example I'm going to have is where people are threatened by bad ratings. And in 1979, this show had begun to sink to the point of cancellation threats from ABC. And so Joseph Barbera and writer Mark Evanier came up with Scrappy-Doo, this lovable mutt who idolizes his Uncle Scooby and just wants to assist Scooby and his friends in solving mysteries. Scrappy has a lot of catchphrases. Let me at him, I'll splat him, I'll rock him and sock him. He also said, ta-da-da-da-da-da, puppy power. And even as a kid, I knew this was fucking stupid.
And and really the voice is also what makes it like awful.
Awful. This says
not your voice, Jeff. I mean the character's.
Okay, point
the character's
taken.
voice, yeah.
Who they wanted was Mel Blanc, because he was very similar to a Looney Tunes character he had a voice called Henry Hawk. And Mel Blanc wanted more money than they wanted to give him. So they ended up with some schmuck named like Lenny Weintraub or something like that. Yeah, Lenny Weinrib throughout the beginning of the series. So I just remember as a kid thinking this character was along the lines of, remember Godzuki? He was like this
sure, yeah. There's like Godzilla's like cousin or something. Nephew.
Yeah. And you just stop and just go, come on, this is the worst thing ever. Scrappy did, however, prove, I don't know if we're going to bring him up, but like a character from Sesame Street, to be a complete dumpster fire, I think, as you mentioned in a past episode, Richard. He proved to be incredibly successful.
Of course.
Which shows how the masses are asses. They don't know what's good. So he had his own spin-offs, and in his shows, it was detailed that unlike in Scooby-Doo, where they always solve the fact that something that they thought was supernatural turned out to be an old man with a projector that could shine on the moon somehow, or a guy with a mask that looked incredibly convincing.
Grifters from Florida.
Right.
In Scrappy-Doo's shows, they're usually like really actual zombies and ghosts and mummies and stuff like that.
I love this pick because it is so obvious. And I think what you said was the most important thing is, even as a child, you could pick up on
pandering.
How pandering that is to just let's put a character in that is like a child itself.
Yeah.
So that the kids can identify with the child. Just like yours with Cousin Oliver, who is like, they had to bring in someone that was a little bit younger that the kids could kind of
the kids today they love the bowl cut and the
But Scrappy-Doo was such a character that remains awful and just annoying and like
also a trope. The Scrappy-Doo is also a trope.
Yeah. I feel like he's the most like Poochie of any of the things.
He is. I mean, the Scrappy-Doo is the character who is brought in that you're basically forced to love. It's not like a character you've grown to love on a show. It's like there's a show that already exists, and then they try to like just shoehorn a new character in. Like, oh, you're gonna love him because you love Scooby-Doo, then you're really gonna love Scrappy-Doo. And it's like, no, you're fucking not. Also, there was Scooby-Dum. Remember Scooby-Dum?
I was about to bring up Scooby-Dum, who is the one character that really deserved his own show. He really didn't, but he was like they brought him in a little bit earlier than Scrappy-Doo. and he was within like the Scooby family. But he was wonderful because he was so
dumb.
He was just silly and dumb, and like as a kid, you can relate to just like this guy that just was like dum dum dum.
Yeah,
and it was just like
pure stupidity. It's pure dumbness, like in a very uncut kind of way, which is like as a kid you love.
It was refreshing, and then Scrappy-Doo is just like shoehorned. Is just like
He was the dog that like loves you so much that he winds up like chewing up your slippers. And you're like, fuck off. Yeah.
I think that Scrappy seemed to be a spotlight stealer too, and that's one thing that you don't really want to see the ensemble broken up by somebody who's just begging you for attention. So stupid Scrappy. More like crappy. Dude.
Oh man.
Nailed it.
High five for that one.
Up
There
here.
you go.
Up here. I love how much man-on-man action I'm getting.
Richard, round it out. What's your last choice?
Oh, so my last one is, it's bad when you have to replace a character. It's really bad when you have to replace that character's replacement.
Ooh.
Oh.
So we
Doubling up.
we were doubling up. Boom, boom. I am talking about Three's Company.
Okay.
After Suzanne Summers left, and again, a contract dispute, which I think was something that was pretty frequent in the 70s with these sitcoms. I think partially sitcoms had become so successful that they kind of started to outgrow whatever the pay scale that had previously been set for sitcom stars.
What if
I think there were a lot of issues.
What if Suzanne Summers was saying, I want DVD rights? And everybody's like,
What's a DVD?
what? And then she's I want digital rights. And everybody's like, what? Oh, you'll find out later. And then she hopped into like this
Time machine.
silver bubble and went away.
What if they just would have switched? And what if Suzanne Summers would have gone to Dukes of Hazzard?
Oh my God.
And then Bo and Luke Duke could have moved in with Jack and Janet. That would have worked.
Yeah. I love that Suzanne Summers is like, you'll never find another ditzy blonde in this town.
Yeah, we found two of them.
Yeah.
Actually. So she went on this horrible contract dispute. They were trying to sue her. So if you remember that last season that she was in, they would only have, she was supposed to be in Fresno taking care of her like sick mom, which by the way, not only are they writing you off by having you like off with your sick mom, they're sending you to the most godforsaken town they could possibly send you. My hometown. God bless you guys. So that had to be like a joke, right? Part of like they're a dig on her. Like we're gonna send her to like fucking Fresno.
Yeah.
And so they would have her like call back into the gang.
Oh. Okay.
For like it was like a minute at the end of the episode. They would almost like recap what happened, and she'd like do some sort of bit, and then that would it. And part of that was because the rest of the cast hated her so much for holding out that they felt like there was no way they could actually have them on the set at the same time. So they get rid of her.
Hold on.
Yes,
No,
Michael.
No. This is to be edited out. Maybe I just misheard you. Who's the character that you're? Chrissy. Okay, because I couldn't. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure because I know that I couldn't remember if your pick was Chrissy or if your pick was Terry that came after.
Well,
Chrissy.
Chrissy is not the pick because Chrissy's the original cast member. We haven't even got to the replacements yet.
Who's the pick?
Guys, don't fight.
No. I just want to make sure. I'm writing it down, but
it's both Cindy and Terry.
Okay, see, I wasn't sure. Like,
Yeah,
that
that's
was
where
part,
we're going.
Part of it was like I wasn't sure if we mentioned who the pick was. That's all.
We'll get to
That's
it.
all. That's all. I'm documenting it all. I just want to make sure.
Freaking horses. We'll get to it. So they wound up eventually parting ways with Suzanne Summers, and they bring in Priscilla Barnes. Actually, no, I take that back. The first one they brought in was Jenna Lee Harrison, who, as Jeff said, could we find a hot blonde ditz?
Well,
I think we can.
She's also
find
got to
one
have nice boobs. Where are we gonna find this gal?
in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles. Go to the bus station. There's 20 of them.
So they brought her in as again. It's always like it has to be the replacement of somebody's like cousin or nephew.
Yeah.
There has to be some sort of relation so you feel like she's organically part of the show, even though it's a completely new character. But I think a lot of the ways they do that, and her character was Cindy Snow, who is supposed to be Chrissy's cousin. And I think they also do that.
Cousins usually have like the same last name, though?
And same personality.
That's weird.
And also the same personality. I've heard of identical cousins.
Yeah.
That I've heard of. But I do think there's part of that, right? That if you make it somebody's cousin or nephew or relative, then you can basically just write the character the same damn way. You can, again, literally almost cross out Bo and Luke Duke and just write in Corey and Vance. You don't even have to give them new character traits. So she was on for a year. Then they bring in Priscilla Barnes, who's playing Terry, who's a nurse. I think she's in there till the end. And she was a little bit different. She was a little bit like, she wasn't ditzy. She was like smart but klutzy, I think was like her thing. If I remember correctly.
I remember her being like just not ditzy.
Yeah, she's more kind of like stubborn than anything else.
Sure, yeah.
So I guess my pick is basically all of the replacement Chrissies, not just one. And that was a show that did a lot of they had to do that with again Don Knotts.
Yeah.
As Mr. Furley coming in to replace the Ropers. They also brought in, remember the cougar that when Jack was going to be a gigolo and he wound up started dating this older foxy chick.
Oh, I don't remember.
Who then Mr. Furley had the hots for, and they tried to do this, set up this weird a love triangle type thing. Never worked out. Yeah, that was a show. I mean, and that show lasted, I don't know, 3-4 multiple seasons after Suzanne Summers left.
Yeah,
and it's an example of there was no reason for that show to continue, other than the fact that everyone was making money off of it.
Sure.
And even after the ratings kind of took a nosedive from where they had been after Suzanne Summers left, it was still popular enough that you could throw it on Friday night and make decent ratings. So there's no reason to stop doing the show, but there's no reason to have the show because the show was all about the chemistry of mainly those three actors.
Three's Company had a very underrated opening title sequence.
Yeah.
Of them
at the San Diego Zoo.
And rollerblading.
Okay, where was that supposed to be?
San Diego.
Okay.
Rollerblading, roller skating along the beach.
She knew again with the DVD digital sales. She's like, so in the opening, could we have rollerblades?
Yeah.
They're like, what are
those?
rollerblades? Yeah.
Joe Raposo of Sesame Street song fame
wrote it. Yeah.
It's Not Easy Being Green. Wrote this Three's Company theme song. That's and also I had dinner with Priscilla Barnes.
You did?
Yeah, a few years ago. And you ever stop and think this is retroactively making me want to unmasturbate to you? It was a moment where you stop and think I can't.
No, I've never had that. But
you never had that.
But go on.
It was this moment where she's just such a wonderful lady, and I just think.
Oh, good. Okay, because I thought it was gonna be and she was a total bitch.
No, she was just.
She was awful.
Perfectly lovely, and.
So how did you wind up having dinner with Priscilla Barnes?
She's just a friend of a friend's friend, or
something. Was it a date?
She was dating.
Was it a date?
It was a dinner. It was like a dinner party, and we all sat down at dinner. And
so it wasn't just you and her,
she
brought Jack or whatever.
She brought her much younger, very nice boyfriend.
Okay,
and that's who was the friends of her friend. No big story other than that kind of the fantasy that kind of gets a little bit sullied by the future reality. So
quit being nice, Jeff's masturbation fantasies.
Yeah,
they're really throwing him off.
Okay, yeah, my blood runs cold. My memory has just been sold. Angels in the centerfold. Okay. Yeah.
Wow, Jay Giles just showed up.
I dropped the rights to that now.
Peter Wolf.
Sharp-eared listeners, play back every episode of Mount Rushmore. You'll hear that I drop a Jay Giles lyric in every episode.
It's our little Easter egg.
Richard.
Freeze frame.
Jeff.
Yes.
Wind it up.
Okay. I shall overcome. So there was this soap opera that started airing in 1966, and it was doing miserably because it wasn't about beautiful people in a beautiful setting. It had an East Coast setting, and it was about kind of haunted, eerie people. Nothing really supernatural in it, but it was called Dark Shadows, and it was tanking. It was 13th of the 14th soap opera that were going on. It was flagging in the ratings, and Richard's playing the organ music right now.
I am.
And so they were told that we're going to cancel it. ABC again said, we're canceling it unless you pick it up you got 26 weeks. I think that was the end of the contract. So Dan Curtis, the series creator, who had always wanted to do a vampire movie, decided, I'm going to add a vampire to this soap opera.
And that's how we got Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
That's how we got Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So that's how we got Dark Shadows, and that's how they started introducing more vampires and werewolves and all these supernatural characters. And they also changed their time slot. So I think it was like a half hour later. So all of a sudden, these kids who came home after school would turn on the TV, and they'd see things like the news, or seem like a weather or hog futures or things like that, or a show with a fucking vampire in it, and they would start watching that. And so these kids started watching this Dracula soap opera.
Wait, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So it was just a regular soap opera.
It was a regular soap
For
opera.
how long?
But for less than a year.
Oh, okay.
For less than a year.
It wasn't like on TV for like 5 years as a regular soap
No.
opera, and then along came a vampire.
No.
No, it's not like this was All My Children and suddenly Susan Lucci became a werewolf.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, they should have. Yeah, let's think about that.
Yeah, it wasn't like that. But and also Jonathan Frid, the actor playing Barnabas Collins, had a 13-week contract, so they were gonna just have a vampire in there for a while. But I love the fact that they just decided, we'll save this show by changing the genre completely and add Dracula to this thing. So
Well, Baywatch used to be set in Victorian England. It was executive produced by Merchant Ivory as their first TV show.
Oh, that's right. And one guy turned to
then-
another guy and said, "You like boobies? Yeah, me too."
Let's do that. More of that.
So I love that sometimes you take a daring choice, and in a lot of these cases, these people really had no choice. It was change the show or no show. But these guys entirely changed kind of what ultimately be it would still be a soap opera, and it'd still have these dark, foreboding themes and things like that. But now it would have these supernatural characters who drink the blood of the living.
Yeah, they basically invented a genre, the gothic soap.
Yeah.
Which has, there have been several of
Yeah,
those
like
since.
True Blood or...
Even Buffy to some extent had like a soap opera kind of like feel to it. They basically invented it by accident,
Yeah.
it sounds like, or out of like panic.
Yeah, so it sounds like Richard likes my choices, and if the judge likes my choices, then I think I got this thing wrapped up.
More pandering? Write that down.
So
I think this is. I think this.
real quick.
Yeah.
Hold on. It was Dark Shadows. So was it a hit after that?
Yes, it was a hit.
How long did it last after that?
It ran until 1971.
So that was 66.
Yeah, and it
67?
spawned feature films, and there was the Tim Burton one and stuff like that. So it had TV movies and these things after that. So I think it might have even been rebooted.
I do like that. It is like the most Tim Burton-y of ideas for him to jump on board of something from his childhood that involved a vampire. And I saw the movie. It was very it was kind of silly. There's like it wasn't terrible.
I enjoyed it. It was nice to see actually
another movie in which Tim Burton comes along and like Tim Burton's up with something or else that someone else had created before.
Yeah.
We should do a Tim Burton episode, you guys.
Johnny Depp plays an eccentric outsider who is largely misunderstood.
And is very pale.
But I felt like it had comedic moments that I didn't expect. And finally, it's like, geez, play Dracula already, Johnny Depp. Like he'd been kind of flirting around it for so long. So a vampire.
And without Dark Shadows, we would not have had Passions.
Yes.
Oh, that's the weird. Yeah.
The most incredible bad soap opera of all time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Good point. Okay, so I'm going to...
Was it really a good point?
Yeah.
You think it was?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm going to take away a point for more pandering. You guys.
Well, that wasn't even
I like that I'm the one that seems like the most gullible. Like we've done 90-something episodes so far. And last week, Richard was the guest judge, and I don't think we pandered very much to him, did we? No.
Because I don't have a soul. That's the problem. All I have is a lump of coal where my heart should be.
Oh.
That was part of the surgery.
So, now it's my turn to judge. I was going to offer a choice, but you guys had already mentioned it, which was Roy from The Simpsons, which was just...
stupid.
It was so stupid and perfect, and then, like, Roy just disappears the same way that Poochie disappears. Mm-hmm. They're like, see you later, Roy. Okay, bye. It's just like, let's get this character out of here.
I'll pull a Richard here. Say one that I was going to mention.
Ooh, let's see if this sways the judge.
I think I was reading an interview with Sam Raimi or Bruce Campbell. He was talking about he and Sam Raimi used the term shemping on set for kind of particularly unmotivated moving from one side place to another, and the origins were the scenes from the Three Stooges that were filmed after the death of Shemp. Yet they had to complete these movies.
They had a stand-in, right?
Yeah, so they'd have a stand-in. So
a shempin,
if you will. Yeah. So if it's a scene where the three knuckleheads are making pies, they say, "Let's go." And Mo motivates them outside of the room, and then whoever is playing Shemp posthumously, his face is always covered up with pies.
Yeah.
Or he just has a huge hat on his head for no reason.
It's a lot of Bela Lugosi from Plan 9 type stuff.
A lot of cape in front of the person. Or,
By the way, a podcast recommendation. If you get a chance, there's a podcast called We Got This. Where they, not at all similar to us, because they try and pick the best of whatever the topic is. They pick one. So we do 4.
Yeah.
So we're like 4 times as good.
Yeah.
But they had Billy West on as a guest,
cool.
who was a
voice actor extraordinaire.
Well, obviously voice actor extraordinaire, but also is a Three Stooges, not just aficionado, but like historian. Like he was
cool.
When they did the Three Stooges movie, they brought him in as like the technical Three Stooges.
Oh, he
guy.
does the best Larry Fine.
His Larry Fine is incredible. So they had him do a whole episode, and he just knows the history of like Shemp after his stroke and like all of the random ones they brought in after Shemp. So I'd say if after you're done with this episode, go back and listen to the 90 plus episodes that we still have. And then go and listen to that episode. We got this. By the way, originally, Michael. I had Reverend Jim from Taxi on my list, and then you said you have a giant blind spot for Taxi, so I axed the shit out of that one.
Wow,
I didn't know he was in addition. Later.
He was in addition. He was on one episode of the first season. He was trying to marry a couple of the characters that didn't wind up getting married, and then he kind of came back for a couple episodes in season 2, and then halfway through the season they said, "Yeah, we can probably work with him as a character."
Oh, right on.
So. Also, by the way,
oh my God, no more alsos. Let's cut this out right after my intro.
Okay,
and then we're done. And then I'm just gonna jump to the 4.
We can improve every episode exponentially by doing that.
Okay, here are my 4 choices. Richard, you're gonna get a point for Rebecca Howe, mostly because she.
Why? Yeah, I'm losing the point.
I got to reverse the sound effect to get the points taken away. Whip.
She had big roles to fill,
she did.
replacing Shelley Long, but she was.
Side note: my ex-father-in-law went to school with Kirstie Alley, and she was drunk in a tree once.
What?
Yeah. What? He said she was the biggest slut in University of Kansas. Just tried to fuck everybody.
In a tree?
Yeah. He found her drunk in a tree.
Oh, what happened?
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Rebecca Howe,
dynamic actress on the show, but very different than Shelley Long. Very physical. She could do a lot of things that Shelley Long didn't do and couldn't do.
Like look attractive.
Number 2, I'm going to select the replacement Dukes from the Dukes of Hazzard.
Sweet.
I love the idea of characters brought in, showed that they don't have the same metal and are just. They just screwed themselves over, and it just turned out to be more of a payday for Bo and Luke. So
Coy and Vance are headed to Turkey Pass. Little do they know the bridge is out. Well, I guess they're gonna die a fiery death.
Jeff. Scrappy-Doo. I love the obvious pandering, and it was a pandering that came out after like the Cousin Oliver thing that I'm guessing they thought would have been a really good idea. That they were like, this guy is going to sell. And then for Scrappy-Doo, it just seemed like everybody got it that he sucked.
Yeah.
And I also like that we got to talk about Scooby-Doo a little bit. Just personal favorite. Richard, you would have gotten a point as soon as you started to talk about Three's Company, because I thought you were going to talk about Don Knotts replacing Norman Fell. And I thought, wow, that was very poetic.
Do you mean you want me to talk about that instead?
Since Jeff brought up his... the Andy Griffith show. I thought that would have been so poetic, but then you went with Chrissy and Cindy and at the end of the day, though, I begrudgingly have to give you a point for Cousin Oliver. I love the Dark Shadows pick, Jeff, but it wasn't a sitcom. And I'm a man that goes by the letter of the law. I thought that was a fabulous choice. I love the idea. I love the idea that it was like genre changing. And it was just going to be like an accent and a weird thing, but not a sitcom.
Oh, I got fucked myself.
Yeah,
I just
it's
played
the fine.
myself.
You didn't. You know it. It's the fine print.
Yeah, I picked this one too.
It's a very thin line between clever and stupid.
So those are my 4. And Cousin Oliver, like I don't really care, but he's iconic in just that. He's the one.
He's
that
Cousin Oliver. Yeah,
he's the one that you talk about.
As Michelangelo too.
All right, guys, this was a good episode.
It was.
This is
It
fun.
was.
I loved
fun.
raking you guys over the coals, and then you guys not listening to me for 57 minutes
Can
or
Jeff-
however
can-
long the fuck
can-
we've been on here.
can Jeff
Jesus Christ, can we go home?
Can Jeff come back now?
Yeah, next week join us where Jeff returns some sense and some order to this mess.
You guys please have the judge robe cleaned or fumigated. I need to. Oh, never mind.
There's been a lice outbreak
Have
here
my
at the
gavel
show.
polished.
This has been the Mount Rushmore podcast. I'm Michael.
I'm Jeff. Oh, we just got replaced with a pretty cooler guy.